Hey, you guys. It's the movie Retrospective. And this movie, I believe we are popping Tom's H.G. Lewis cherry on this one. Is this the first Herschell Gordon Lewis movie that you have seen?
Yeah, I've never seen one of these. This is a Southern masterpiece. Southern masterpiece.
I thought you would like this one. I've seen all of his, well, I haven't seen all of his movies because he made a fuck ton.
Yeah.
But I've seen all of his quote-unquote blood trilogy. Which first started with Blood Feast, and then this one, 2000 Maniacs, and then Color Me Blood Red. I actually reviewed Color Me Blood Red on my Flickers of Fear show, but I wanted to save 2000 Maniacs because I thought you would enjoy it very much.
Yeah, this one looks. It was filmed here in Florida. There's some giveaways that's Florida. You know, them stuccoed interiors, but it's supposed to be taking place probably in a place like Mississippi.
You know what? I'm not really entirely sure because there is a sign that says Augusta, Georgia, like 111 miles or something. I've seen some reviews that said it was maybe supposed to be South Carolina.
Okay.
But I don't think they say, and I mean, like the vacationers that turn up in it say they're going to Florida for vacation. So I don't really know. I thought it could be anything, but it's not because it's Florida because it was shot in St. Cloud.
This movie, the theme of this movie is Southerners trolling Yankees. And they're trolling the Yankees in this one.
Well, significantly more than trolling. They're actually like torturing and murdering them.
Well, that's in the movie. That's the characters in the movie. I'm talking about the people who are making this movie, are trolling. All right, and they're also trolling Southerners too. They're doing fucking over the top impersonations, over the top Southern accents, and then they're doing cheesy Yankee accents and stuff. And what's funny is like everybody in this movie is a Southerner, pretty much. I could tell. It seemed like everybody was Southern, but the ones playing Southern roles, their accents are not authentic. They're fucking going way over the top, almost Amos and Andy. Well, yes, sir. You know, like shit like that. And then the Southerners that are trying to sound like Yankees just sound like more close to just regular Southern accent. So you can see the difference between the two. It's just fucking funny.
Yeah, I guess they had to go like they had to go like way over the top.
Yeah, sure. It's over the top, and it's kind of like about trolling Yankees and Southern revenge porn, but it's funny.
Interestingly, you know what's crazy about this? The thing about H.G. Lewis is that he's actually not a Southerner by birth. He's from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And he moved to Chicago later on, although he did teach literature at the University of Mississippi for quite a long time.
Okay.
However, his longtime collaborator, who I think his name was Dave Friedman, who was a producer and like a sound guy on most of his films and stuff, was from Birmingham, Alabama, but then moved to Chicago later on. And actually, H.G. Lewis did retire to Florida in his later life. He actually only passed away a few years ago. He died in 2016.
Okay.
He lived for quite a long time because he was, he was from the 20s. But
it's a great movie. It's way ahead of its time. It's almost kind of like along the lines of Devil's Rejects or, like a slasher flick. It's kind of like something you'd see coming out of Italy, but more coherent, better. And it's 1964.
Yeah.
1964. And me and Jenny are marveling over the Southern girls' makeup and shit. It was 60s fashion, and we were just looking at how goth they looked. If you actually just dyed their hair black, they would look like goth with their makeup and shit. Just kind of good fashion. The dudes in this are just kind of just over-the-top redneck caricatures. But it's all kind of like fun and games, if you ask me. It's weird juxtapositions between horrible shit happening to kind of like innocent people, and there are people laughing about it when it's going on. It's kind of a weird, distorted mixture of fucking reality and spoof. It's kind of like House of a Thousand Corpses or Devil's Rejects, kind of.
Well, you can like Rob Zombie is really into H.G. Lewis movies.
Okay, that's it.
So that's why. I mean, the thing about it is that not only like I said, Herschell Gordon Lewis, his movies are like goofy and cheap and everything like that. But anybody that's into horror movies, especially like slashers or gore films, you really need to see some of his shit because this dude was way, way ahead of his time, and he didn't even really mean to be. He was just kind of like, basically, he kind of started out making like nudie films, like a lot of exploitation filmmakers did, back in the 50s and stuff. And
where
then
the money was.
Yeah, exactly. And then he had the idea, like for Blood Feast, that, because most of his shit was playing like on the drive-in circuit or exploitation cinemas, stuff like that. So he's just kind of like, well, what if I, up the ante? Because he's just trying to get people to go see the shit, right? So he's just like, well, I'm going to make it like super gory and bloody. So he makes Blood Feast, and it's this massive, massive success. And so from that, he decides that he's going to make, another one, because this is like really successful with this kind of horror shit that he's doing. Now, this one came out because Blood Feast came out in 1963, and then this one came out the next year. And I can't remember what the budget on this was, maybe $60,000, maybe. But it was a much bigger budget than he had for Blood Feast. I've seen Blood Feast as well, and it's kind of like... It's still fun, but it doesn't have a real coherent story. This one kind of actually does. Interestingly, the story for this was inspired by the producer, Dave Friedman, being in New York City and seeing the musical Brigadoon, which if you haven't seen that, we watched it in high school chorus. But it's about a village in the, Scottish Highlands that only, like, appears once every 100 years. So he got the idea to do that, but like in a Civil War, like South is gonna rise again context.
Yeah.
And so not only is this only the second Gore film ever made that they know of, this is also, I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the first hicksploitation film.
Yeah.
So every subsequent one, from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Hills Have Eyes, any of that shit. This is where it all started.
Yeah.
This is where it all started.
Goofing on Southerners.
This is the first one that did this. and like I said, he wasn't trying to do anything like particularly original. They just thought like the whole Brigadoon thing would be a good idea.
Yeah.
And it was just like this southern town that,
Yeah, the whole idea is there's this southern town that emerges out of nowhere on the 100-year anniversary of something with the Civil War battle where somebody was defeated.
It was like at the end of the Civil War was the story, and there was like a rogue group of like 6 Yankees, and they came through this town, which is called Pleasant Valley. It's not a real town, obviously. And killed all 2,000 of the inhabitants, men, women, and children. Right. And so everybody's dead. Spoiler alert.
It's ghosts.
Yeah, they're ghosts. Or revenants, I guess, would be a better way of putting it. So on the 100th anniversary of that, the town, everybody in the town comes back to life, and they're having a centennial, and they need 6 Yankees, the first ones that kind of happen by down the road to... Yeah,
and the revenants fucking are looking at the license plates of people coming through, and they're diverting the Yankees towards this town. And then there's a big celebration going on. They're all waving, well, what you would call today Confederate flags. That is not the Confederate flag. That's the fucking battle flag of, I think, Lee's army, which is, the one with the X on it. But because people wouldn't recognize what the real Confederate flag looked like.
Yeah, they'd be like, what the fuck does that mean?
What flag is that? Yeah. But it wasn't as cool as the fucking battle flag. And then they're having big parades, and they start talking people into joining these big festivals, and it's all like fun and trolling, and the mayor is basically fucking a cracker, he's like a foghorn, like, well, come on out, people, he's like something from another era. And
Belvedere, come here, boy.
Yeah. Which, those guys did exist when I was a kid. They were running around Mississippi still. But it's just kind of a silly movie, fun. I mostly just enjoyed it for the stupid fucking stunts that they would do to kill people, throw rocks on them and fucking cut them up. Some of the shit's fucking pretty gory. Way ahead of its time.
For 1964, I mean, obviously it looks fake, and the blood is like bright red, because I don't think they even figured out how to make more realistic stage blood until like the late 70s or early 80s, maybe. So prior to that, and like you see this in a lot of Giallo movies and stuff like that too, like the blood just looks like fucking tempera paint.
Yeah, it is cool though, because it's weird juxtapositions of some girl fucking screaming, begging for her life, and people laughing while they're cutting her fingers off. It's like something out of damn House of a Thousand Corpses. Devil's Rejects. Like, I don't like that.
I mean, it's not like
it's not that gory. It's
right
fucking,
by today's standards, but considering that this was made in 1964 and this is only the second movie to ever do this, to be like a gore film, it's actually pretty. I mean, obviously when this came out, the MPAA tried to cut it and everything like that, but it mostly just went around to drive-ins, and honestly, like, it was really, really successful on the drive-in circuit in the South.
can see why.
Which you can totally see why. Even though I don't even. It's weird because the movie is not really. It's kind of making fun of the Southerners, but it's kind of making fun of the other people too.
Yeah, it's the whole thing's a spoof.
Yeah, it's kind of like satirical, like the whole kind of. So nobody really comes. Even the victims in this are kind of made to look like, not all of them. Like there's a couple that are good, but they're kind of made to look sort of like degenerate or like, it's like, oh, this one's there. Like there's married couples and they're just going to like fucking around on each other and shit like that. So they're kind of made to look immoral, I guess.
Yeah, well, what you're dealing, the Southern characters are being presented in kind of stereotypical form. What the Northern stereotype of a Southerner is. The Northerners are being kind of portrayed in the Southern stereotypes of what a Northerner is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Degenerate, sexual deviants, fucking, you know what I mean, authoritarian scumbags, people that snotty looking down on you, that kind of shit. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, I
think it really they could have done better. They actually were kind of light-handed on the Yankees. Because shit, my grandparents, or they fucking hated Northerners, hated them. It's a kind of hatred that doesn't really even exist anymore. They hated them. All right, and they would say things about them that was much worse than what they showed here, which they could have gone that route. It could have been a lot more extreme.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you didn't want them because they were actually like just innocent victims, really.
Yeah.
And they were just being punished as a proxy for something they didn't have anything to do with. You know what I'm saying?
Which sounds familiar. That's kind of what happens with the South, too.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's why they're goofing on it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So they didn't go that far, but they did kind of, there were a couple scenes where like some of the Northerners, like I said, they were all like screwing around in their spouses. One of them got like fucking falling down drunk and shit like that. But I mean, they weren't terrible people otherwise, though. And honestly, like the two Northerners that kind of like get away, one of whom, this is like really funny because the other, it's 6 people, like I said, because they're trying to do like a proxy for the 6 Yankee soldiers that killed everybody 100 years ago. So they specifically needed 6. So they just have 2 carloads of people. So the first one has like 2 married couples who are on their way to Florida. And then the second car was driven by this one woman who's played by Connie Mason, who was the Playboy Playmate for 1963.
Yeah, that's another thing about the movie.
She doesn't get naked in it, though, so don't get excited.
No, I don't think there's any nudity at all in this, is there?
I don't know. There isn't.
I don't think there's
now that I'm thinking about it.
But,
no nudity.
Yeah, pretty much all the girls are cute in it, though.
Yeah.
They went out of their way to make sure they're cute girls in it. Which,
Well, like I said, H.G. Lewis came from nudie films, so obviously they're going to do that. Although that's why it surprised me that there's not any nudity in this.
Probably wouldn't have gotten the proper ratings if there was nudity and violence in the same movie.
Because that's kind of something. Yeah, you couldn't really put. It's like, well, you can have one or the other. You can't have both. Which is like really funny. I kind of get where they were coming from, but yeah,
they didn't want to
sexualize
violence or make. You know what I mean? They didn't want to portray sex and violence being mixed together in the same thing. They didn't want that.
Which, that went right out the window, didn't it? Like a few years later, but,
Right. For a while, that was like that.
Yeah. But, so I think, like, the most titillating shot of her is she goes in the water to wash mud off or something and just, like, lifts up so you can see, like, part of her thigh.
Yeah, you think it's going to happen.
That's about it. So don't be disappointed. It's like you don't get to see any boobies or anything. Right. But her, I guess she was driving wherever, and she picked up a dude named Tom who was a teacher, and he was on his way to a teacher's conference, and his car had broken down. So she picked him up, like being a good Samaritan. Now, this is really funny, too. I'm not actually sure if this is true. I've heard this. But they make a big deal in the movie of these two not being a couple, because she's just some perfect stranger I picked up on the side of the road. But I think those two were actually married in real life when the movie was made, which I thought was
that would be
funny.
lost. That would be lost on modern audiences of why they keep saying whether they're not married. Back in those days, a man and a woman who were not married should not have been even associating with one another.
Yeah.
Okay. So, that might have been illegal in certain states and in certain counties. Yeah, especially in the South.
Yeah, and they would have.
In the 60s,
yeah, and they did make kind of a big show of like putting them in separate hotel rooms and all this other kind of stuff.
Right. Now, it wouldn't have been statewide stuff. It would have been by county in the South. the South to this day, certain in Mississippi and Alabama, depending on the counties, still kind of have what would kind of be considered Sharia law, but it's like a Christian version of it. No alcohol, no pornography. You probably couldn't associate with anybody you weren't married to. Thing is those laws are on the books, but they're not really being enforced.
I mean, a lot of them are very unenforceable, especially like the sexual ones. It's like, how are they going to know, like, what dildos you have in your house?
Right. And then if you're a regular listener, I don't know, we've talked about this before. What the deal was with that in the South is church groups would take over entire counties and pass laws that were targeted towards people that were not in their church, with the idea of driving them out. They were using lawfare. Like banning alcohol to drive people out of the county because they wanted to control the county. Now, did they drink alcohol? You're hell right they did. Yes. They would ban alcohol on one hand, but then run stills on the other hand. Just because they banned something didn't mean that they were against it. They were just trying to drive enemies out.
Yeah.
And that's the truth.
And some, like you said, sometimes, particularly in the South and smaller towns, some of those laws are still in the books. But like I said,
just not being enforced.
Nowadays they just don't enforce them. But some of them absolutely still are.
Yeah, like dry counties still exist.
Oh, yeah.
You can't sell alcohol, but you can have it. You can drink it.
Yeah, so some people have to, like, drive to the next. And it's not just the South either, because I think there's some in, like, Wisconsin and shit like that as well. But yeah, so the story of this, so there's like, this first carload, and like you said, they have like two of the rednecks are out there on the main highway, and they're diverting. Like if you have like a southern license plate, then you're fine. They just let you go, but because they're looking at it through binoculars. But if you're from up north, I couldn't tell what the license plate was on the first one, like, because they're obviously the colors have changed of all the license plates, so I don't recognize that. But apparently they were from from up north, so so they divert the two cars into the thing, and then they're saying, oh, we're having this big centennial, and you guys get to stay here. You guys are the guests of honor. And they're being super, super friendly and super, like, up in their faces. It's like, we'll give you everything for free. You can stay in a hotel for free. You can have free food, free entertainment for 2 days. And, I mean, obviously, it's really funny because I guess, like, back in the 60s, like, if you were just driving through a town, nothing's wrong with their cars or nothing like that. It's not like they... they like, gave them flat tires or like fucked their cars up so they couldn't leave. They, you'd think that if this whole town full of people were like aggressively friendly or were like, you have to stay here for 2 days for our celebration, I'd be like, no thanks. And then you just like hit the gas and go. But back in the 60s, everybody wanted to be kind of polite, and they're like, the town's like, but don't disappoint us. You guys are the guests of honor and you have to stay. And they're like, okay, free shit. So they put him up in the hotel, and obviously you know how the shit's gonna go, right? I mean, the first one to go is that one woman that was wearing that bustier.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. She was one of the cuties.
Yeah. Well, like you said, everybody's pretty cute in this.
Yeah. She looked like a goth chick. She looked like Madonna, actually. She looked like Madonna from the 80s.
It did. She looked very much like, because I was like, that bustier that she was wearing, I was like, I remember them still selling that in Victoria's Secret, like up into the 90s.
Yeah.
That's almost that same exact one.
Now, this movie's been remastered, so it looks good. It's actually in HD. You can see it, you know what I mean? It doesn't have that, grainy or fuzzy kind of imagery. You can see things clearly. So you can see what people looked like for real, It's kind of, we were marveling over stuff in there, like they're in this hotel and the telephone is obviously from the 1930s. It's one of those kinds that you do like this, and there's no dial on it.
And it's painted to match the wall.
Painted to match the wall.
That was like very, very... In two of the rooms, it's really weird.
Yeah, and it was probably something like Bakelite or baked rubber or something, you know what I mean? It was just old... Just seeing that old shit, that was old even in the 60s.
Yeah.
And I don't know where they got that. That was somewhere here in Florida.
St. Cloud. That's honestly, that is only about 26 miles from downtown Orlando.
Okay.
St. Cloud is. So, I don't know what it looks like nowadays. I haven't been there. That building's
probably gone.
I'm sure that's all gone. Because, I mean, in the movie, it looks like and honestly, everybody that's in this movie lived in that town. They got pretty much the whole town to, like, be in the movie.
Yeah.
So it's, like, hilarious. I don't know, like, some of the scenes, because some of the scenes are pretty gory, and it's, like, so they have, like, all these little old ladies and shit like that. Yeah. And they're all, like, laughing, going, that's right, squish that. You know what I mean? And it's just... And I was like, I wonder, did they like have an insert shot later? Like, were the old ladies like really watching that stuff? Because you'd think that they would be, be
they were probably
clutching their pearls and shit.
No, they were probably handing out whiskey, Southern Comfort. They're probably just, we having fun.
Cut that girl's arm off.
Yeah, in that day, they were probably in brand new trailers. Those 1950s looking down bullet-shaped trailers. There were a lot of those around. People, they were probably living in those and stuff. It's just having fun. I think we're just having fun.
I mean, there's not as many people get killed in this. It's only like, what's the body count? 4?
Yeah.
Because the last 2 of the Yankees actually do get away. So the first woman she goes out to the woods. She's married, but she goes out with some local stud or whatever. And he takes her out in the woods, whips out a knife, and then cuts her thumb off.
Yeah, and laughs about it like it was an accident.
And he's like, whoops, look what happened.
Yeah.
And then they take her back to like the mayor's office or something, and they all like hold her down and then chop her arm off.
Yeah, they said they were going to help her. They were gonna,
we'll take her to a doctor, and then they chop her arm off. And then later they're having a barbecue.
Yeah.
Where they're barbecuing her arm.
Yeah.
Over a spit.
In front of people who aren't in on it, going, what is that? Yeah.
Well, it's weird because then like the other Yankees come through, and I was like, you'd think that if you saw a human arm on the spit, you'd be like, I'm gonna leave town now, thanks. It's like, thanks for the free hotel room, but
well, the Yankees weren't that smart,
I guess. Well, now in that one guy's defense, he was like super super drunk, so you know what I mean. So the drunk guy is the next to go. He just like falls asleep, and then he kind of wakes up and he's like, gee, I wonder where my wife went. The one that got her arm cut off.
Yeah.
And then so basically they're like, oh, it's time for the horse race. So then they end up. I mean, they quarter him essentially.
She was fooling around on her husband too.
Well, he was fooling around on her also.
Yeah.
So like I said, turnabout's fair play.
Yeah.
Because he ran off with that girl with the hair helmet and the weird Mexican dress.
It was a Spanish dress.
Or a Spanish dress.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that they're showing in here that kind of point out the southern stuff. The Spanish and the French were here long before there was the United States. So the idea that, I don't know, there's kind of like a northern idea that the South is just some kind of Teutonic mixture of Germans and Irish and stuff. No, the Spanish and the French were here first, so there's a huge influence of the old empires, So that's what they're talking about in that movie. It's one of the hotties, one of the ones that they use to bait a lot of people's, a Spanish girl in a Spanish dress.
With a hair helmet. It's all kind of like fooshed over, like ratted.
Right.
And I was like, everyone's hair is so crunchy in this.
Yeah.
Not everyone's. Connie Mason's is still like, she has that nice little Betty Draper flip going on.
Yeah.
But most of the other, and it's funny because when the Northerners first pull up in the car, I'm like, look, it's a car full of Flo's. Like Flo from Alice, because they all had the things over their hair, and their hair was all kind of big and crunchy. Yeah. And they all had those 60s sunglasses on.
Yeah, the dead giveaway for us, being Southerners, is that the interior shots, all the walls are stuccoed, which that's Spanish. That's Florida.
Yeah.
And if it looked really French, then that's going to be somewhere towards Mississippi, Gulf Coast, Louisiana, around that area, Pass Christian, New Orleans, that area. That's all French. So we can tell just by the way the buildings look. Start going into the heartland of Alabama and Mississippi, things start looking like British houses,
Yeah.
So you can tell.
But yeah, so he gets quartered. Now they couldn't really show that obviously because again, this is only the second Gore film ever made, and he didn't have a lot of money. So they mostly just imply that he gets pulled apart, and then they'll have the horses going and then dragging the rope with a leg or something attached to it, and it's bloody, and it does look pretty good. But like I said, you got to use your imagination. And then the next guy, they're like, oh well, his game is the barrel roll, so they make him crawl into a barrel. They say, we're just gonna roll you down the hill, it'll be fine. Yeah, this is my favorite one, I think. And they're like, oh, and by the way, we're also gonna hammer these big long nails into it. Yeah. And then they roll it down the hill with fucking nails.
Yeah, which that's a good idea.
Nail filled barrel. Yeah,
they got the fucking barrel with nails going through it. They roll his ass down in that when they get.
And he's all fucking fucked up and bloody when he gets to the bottom.
Yeah.
And then the last kill, which maybe the last kill is my favorite. That's the last girl, and they tie her to this platform, and they have this big, it's kind of like a dunk tank,
Yeah.
you know, like a carnival, but there's this big, huge rock. How did they get that rock up there now that I'm thinking about it?
It's a movie. That rock was the size of a VW bug.
Yeah, it was. It's a massive boulder.
They had it up on top of a platform, and they took a old redneck, and
he's like, I got one of these newfangled softballs.
Yeah, he got softball.
He said something like that.
And he was gonna go, and they were shooting it at this little target that was just like a dog tank, and he hit it on the first try and was whooping and hollering. Rock falls down, the girl crushes her. And they're all laughing.
Well, yeah, the funny thing about it is that, one, she kind of goes along with it. I mean, I guess she was outnumbered, so it's not really like she could do anything about it. But so they tie her to the thing, and then the mayor's, you know, trying to get her to say, she's like, you have to watch and tell us, like, when it's going to fall. And so every time somebody misses the target, you have to say, it ain't fallen yet. And she says, it hasn't fallen yet. She's like, oh, excuse my grammar.
Yeah.
Because she wouldn't say ain't.
Yeah.
That, like, I don't know why that made me laugh so much. It just really did. But yeah, so
ethnic humor.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, she gets smushed.
They start correcting the Yankees on how to speak English. You know, just I don't know. People probably didn't catch it because he said, "What was it?" The mayor said something about we're waiting on you, and she goes, "Waiting? Okay, yeah, we're waiting for you." He goes, "No, we're not waiting for you. We're waiting on you." Which is.
They
South,
did. It just happened a couple of times, but it's like the very subtle where the Northerners were like correcting their grammar.
Right. Yeah. But it was kind of the Southerners were correcting the Northerners' grammar.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying.
Yeah. And then it's just like there's a lot of shit that unless you grew up in the South and you understand the old South, that you just wouldn't get it. You wait on people, you don't wait for them. Another thing is that we don't have lunch here. All right. It's breakfast, supper, and dinner.
Well, dinner is lunch.
Breakfast, dinner.
Although I kind of feel like that's more an old school thing. That was like my grandparents' age.
Yeah, I used to fuck up and say lunch a lot, and I'd have fucking 4 or 5 of them. Goes, we don't have that here. And I was like, yeah, we don't have that here. They would refuse to say lunch.
Like I said, that was a grandparents. That's our grandparents' era. Because after that,
my father's era.
Yeah, but you know, after that, my parents and you know my generation, they did start saying lunch. Because, like I said, even back in the old days,
mass media fucking programs you to say lunch.
Well, back in the old days, my grandfather used to call it. He didn't call it a lunchbox. He called it a dinner pail.
Dinner pail. Yeah.
Yeah, and then supper was the evening meal.
Yeah, dinner pail.
Which my grandparents still called it that.
Yeah.
But.
And if you fucking says supper, what the fuck is that? They'd get pissed, pull out the Bible, and start fucking scenes where Jesus had a supper.
We're having the same thing as Jesus is having.
Now, were they serious? Not really. Their resistance to assimilation was serious, but they were just, the idea was they just wanted to put their foot down and protect their ways. And there's a lot of that in this movie. You know, there's the spirit behind it.
Yeah, even though it's just, I mean, it's a very silly, goofy exploitation film. I didn't even mention that, you know, the earworm at the beginning, like South's Gonna Rise Again, yeehaw, you know that. I hope you like bluegrass if you watch this movie because holy crap. The band that's in it, like the guys that are playing the banjos, are called the Pleasant Valley Boys. Yeah. So yeah, but honestly, that theme song. H.G. Lewis not only wrote, directed, and did the cinematography for this movie, he also wrote and I think sang that theme song. Okay. So he's, you know, man of many talents.
If we have foreigners in here, don't know what bluegrass is. Bluegrass music is pretty common in the southern regions. It's mutant Irish folk music, what it is. It comes from Irish.
With banjos.
Yeah, with banjos and stuff. It's kind of like the southern version of kind of what you hear, you know, Dexy's Midnight Runners, you know, Come On Eileen. Like that, but just even more mutated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like, so yeah, there's a lot of bluegrass music in this. But yeah, I did want to bring that up because that song, I mean, they use it at the beginning and then they use it like throughout the movie and it will absolutely be stuck in your head for eternity from, you know, going forward because it's real catchy, gonna say. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this movie, as I said, very, very influential. Had a bunch of fans. Like I said, Rob Zombie was into the shit. Lux Interior from the Cramps, also a big fan. And he said something about, he was laughing about the fucking that scene where they squished that girl too, and like all the old ladies that like lived in the town going, "What's going on?" You know what I mean? So it's that kind of shit. I will say too, John Waters was also a big fan of this. He made a movie called Multiple Maniacs, kind of like an homage to this. The band 10,000 Maniacs used this movie as an inspiration for their name, and this movie was also, it's kind of a remake and it's kind of a sequel. And I think it was 2001 Maniacs, and, what's his, fucking Freddy Krueger, what's his name?
Fuck.
God damn it. Why can't I Robert Englund. Robert Englund was in it. And that came out when did that come out? The 90s, I want to say? I think it was like 1990. No, it's 2005. Okay, it's like later than I thought. I've seen that as well, but I don't really remember much about it. We probably should have watched that too, because I think that's also on Tubi. This is actually on Tubi right now. I think Blood Feast is too, and Color Me Blood Red. So if you want to watch his whole, H.G. Lewis's whole, what they call the Blood trilogy.
Yeah, I want to see more of it.
As I said, I mean, Color Me Blood Red is basically, that's about, I reviewed that a while back, but that's like about an artist that, uses his own blood for paint. And Blood Feast is kind of just about a guy who's trying to, what's he trying to do? He's trying to like cut up a bunch of people and make like a big feast for some Egyptian goddess he's trying to bring back or some shit like that. I don't know. But so they don't really have any thematic, nothing that ties them together. Just the fact that they're all kind of like gore movies.
Southern horror movies.
And like I said, I'm pretty sure this was the first one.
Yeah, Southern horror movies. Kind of like stuff that inspired Rob Zombie. That's good,
Yeah, or like I said,
Devil's
just even from this, even from the 70s, like Tobe Hooper and stuff like that, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Hills Have Eyes, all that kind of stuff. This is like the first hillbilly horror movie, as far as I'm aware. I mean,
even though technically Southerners are not hillbillies.
No, I'm just saying, but that's what they call it, hillbilly horror. That's the name of it, or I call it hicksploitation.
Yeah, hicksploitation. Yeah.
Which that's another phrase, but but no, that's what they call it.
Pumpkinhead would be hillbilly.
Yeah.
Pumpkinhead, which is in a mythical location. That's supposedly California. There is no place like that in California, in Pumpkinhead.
Yeah, well, that's just where they shot it.
And in the modern era, it looks like something from the 1920s. Like, where the fuck is this?
Yeah, it looks like
when is this?
Looks like some Dust Bowl shit.
Yeah.
Which is kind of...
See Pumpkinhead, another good movie, if you haven't seen that.
Yeah, we did a review of that a little while back. But so, as I said, this movie, it's just a fun... I mean, the acting's bad. Everyone's way over the top.
Yeah.
There's not that many kills in it, but the kills in it are pretty creative and are pretty gory for 1964. But I mean, if you're really into gore films, or if you're into horror, if you're into like I said, hillbilly horror, then probably you need to see this, because this is kind of where it all started.
It's just a fun indie movie.
Yeah, it's just...
way ahead of its time.
Like I said, it's just fun. And like I said, I like the twist, too, that when the last two, victims get away, and then they go and report it to the cops, and then they go back and the town is gone. Just like Brigadoon. Yeah. And then the funny thing, too, is that, like, at the end, before the last of the two ghosts disappear, like the really rednecky guys... they're always kind of like, they can't wait until the next centennial, so they're gonna like come back again another. They said he says something like, maybe we'll get some Yankees with a rocket ship or something like that. So it's like, how do they know about rocket ships? Don't think about it too much. But so they're gonna come back every 100 years, and so in 2065, somebody should make another one in 2065. That's not that far away. Just make another one where they all come back and kill a bunch of people. That would be like super funny. I was thinking that when I was reading the Wikipedia page. I said somebody should remember and do it. But so this is on Tubi at the moment, so you can watch it for free. So let us know what H.G. Lewis movies you've seen, because like I said, he's made a shit ton. And if you've seen this one, what you thought of it, blah, blah, blah. And we will see you guys on the next movie retrospective. Bye.